petrochemicals are a triple threat to us and our communities.
Hello, my name is Raya Salter, and welcome to Facing Future TV, live from COP27 at Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt. We are here today to talk about plastics and petrochemicals. In a world that is awash in plastic, and soon we'll see more as a host of new petrochemical plants, methane feedstock supplied by the fracking boom come online. Companies like ExxonMobil, Shell, and Saudi Aramco are ramping up output of plastic, which is made from oil and gas and their byproducts, to hedge against the possibility that a serious global response to climate change might reduce demand for their fuels. This is an extremely urgent situation. We know that once again at COP, more oil and gas executives are here than from many entire country delegations combined. So here to talk about this important issue, we have an esteemed group of panelists. First, I am going to speak to Reverend LennoxYearwood. Reverend Yearwood is the president and CEO of the Hip Hop Caucus. He's a minister, a community activist, a U.S. Air Force veteran, and one of the most influential people in hip hop political life. He's also chair of the Bloomberg Philanthropies Petrochemicals campaign and works extensively on issues of environmental justice in the U.S., on the Gulf Coast, and throughout the world. Thank you so much, Reverend Yearwood, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. It is an honor to be here at the United Nations Climate Conference of the Parties, COP27. So I want to thank you, Raya. I want to thank AY and the other esteemed panelists who are here. As was mentioned, I am the president of the Hip Hop Caucus, and I want to reference that is important as we deal with the climate crisis, utilizing culture and using our cultural expression to shape one's political experience. That is a critical component to this process. We will not succeed in achieving our climate goals if culture is not at the center of this process. But also, as Raya mentioned, I am the senior advisor for Bloomberg Philanthropies, and I am the chairperson of the Beyond Petrochemical campaign, in which we just launched about a month ago a $85 million development and foundation goal to support stopping the proposed existence of petrochemical facilities. And the reason why this is critical is because petrochemicals are a triple threat to us and our communities. One, our public health. Two, our environment. And three, our climate progress. As the world transitions to a clean and renewable energy, and without moving from fossil fuels to clean energy, we are increasingly looking and seeing the oil and gas companies are looking for avenues for growth and are making plans for massive build-out. And they are looking to existing petrochemical plants. By 2050, petrochemical and applications will account for nearly half of all the oil and gas demand. And so what needs to happen here is left unchecked. The public health crisis, the climate crisis, and the climate progress that we are hoping to achieve will not move forward if we continue to put pollution over people. And so the thing that we have to do here, moving forward, is understanding that our reliance on single-use plastic, our reliance on petrochemicals, is a pathway for the fossil fuel industry to get around the decrease in demand in oil and gas. And so in America, we are looking to stop the proposed 120 proposed petrochemical facilities. And why this is most devastating and why this is most concerning, because while we are discussing loss and damage throughout the globe, there is a loss and damage that is happening in America as well. Because we are seeing a loss and damage in regards to the Appalachia, in regards to the Arctic, in regards to the Gulf Coast. We are seeing those communities who are suffering the most, in particular communities where I come from, in my home state of Louisiana. Let me conclude with this, that one of the things that is critical in this process is understanding the health concerns. The fossil fuel industry has put forth a false solution, so that we are choosing between our environment and our economy. That is a false narrative that we cannot follow and allow. What we must understand, that in communities like Cancer Alley, communities in Port Arthur, Texas, communities in West Virginia and Pennsylvania and Ohio, those communities are suffering the most because of the petrochemical industry. And we must transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And in that, with our campaign, we are looking toward community leadership. We're looking toward data, research, to make sure we can push this forward. We understand the importance of demonstration, but demonstration without litigation and legislation leads to frustration. So we understand how important it is to have litigation and legislation. And finally, we are looking for stakeholder engagement. This is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. And if you don't know what the lunch counter is, that is a part of the civil rights movement, when young black people who demanded their space, their place at the lunch counter, they demanded their place at the lunch counter, understanding that we can't live in a place where we don't have fair equality. Well, now, let me be very clear. In the 21st century, we still are dealing with the fact that we don't have fair equality. But now in the 21st century, we're not only dealing with equality, we are dealing with existence. This is our lunch counter moment for the 21st century. And we must transition from fossil fuels to clean energy. And we must stop our reliance on single-use plastics and fertilizers. And we must move from petrochemicals. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Reverend Yearwood, for your leadership, your tireless passion, and I really hope that the petrochemical and oil and gas executives who are lunching right now in the pavilions take notice that we are not going to let their waste stand. Now, we're also going to speak with two folks from a fantastic organization called Gaia. Now, Christine Keith is the executive director of Gaia. Perhaps you can tell us a bit more about your organization. She has 25 years of experience with social movements and international nonprofit organizations. She began her work in Guatemala as an educator, and she has worked from the U.S. on international waste, public health, and environmental justice issues. She is joined by Niven Reddy. He is the Africa Regional Coordinator for Gaia and the Break Free from Plastic movement. Welcome, Christine, and welcome, Niven.
Thank you. Thank you. That was powerful and beautiful. Thank you. So Gaia is a global network of organizations that are grassroots-based and are fighting for zero waste and fighting against incineration and other polluting waste disposal technologies worldwide. We have members in 92 countries.
That is fantastic. Could you tell us a bit about how these issues of petrochemicals, oil, and plastic are interconnected?
Yeah, well, I think already Reverend Yearwood spoke to some of that. So I'll just be very brief. More than 99% of plastics is made from fossil fuels. And as he spoke, the petrochemical industry, including plastic, is set to use up 45% of the growth for oil and gas mining from 2018 to 2040. And also, as he said, the plastic industry is pumping out single-use plastic at a rapidly increasing rate. which could create a potential carbon bomb if the international community does not take urgent action to reduce plastic pollution.
What are some of the international efforts that are happening here at COP and perhaps beyond to address this issue?
Well, so I spoke about Gaia. We have members in 92 countries. Break Free from Plastic brings together 11,000 organizations globally, and together we're organizing and working to promote zero waste solutions in major cities worldwide. We're working to push for lasting solutions to the plastic pollution crisis. And these include things like investing in zero waste systems to create compost, reduce plastic, pass policies that limit plastic production, and work on other climate-friendly, more healthy, and cost-effective solutions.
All right, thank you so much. Let me ask you, Niven, please tell us about some of your work in Africa on pollution and these issues.
Thank you, Raya. I think, as Christy mentioned, we are a global movement, and we work with all of our partners in Africa around, countering this narrative that plastic is a waste management issue. What happens is that plastic is only seen as the visible components when it's ending up in our waterways and our oceans and the environment. And what we work with our local member organizations is to tackle this problem much further upstream and create the connection with the petrochemical industry. So Africa is often seen as just the poster for the problem as a waste issue, but the amount of people that live on the fence line of the companies that are producing waste is in the millions. And people are impacted at every stage of the plastic value chain, and that's one thing we need to recognize. So our partners work along the entire life cycle of plastic, trying to counter this at the petrochemical stage, at the extraction stage, to pushing for reuse and refill systems at the consumption stage, and working downstream to try and not only ensure that we shift this narrative to upstream, but work with local waste picker organizations and ensure that the informal sector has a seat at the table, because they are quite critical to all waste management systems in Africa. And if you're talking about zero waste in Africa, you cannot exclude the informal sector and waste pickers from that conversation.
Can you tell us a bit more about what these fence line and frontline communities in Africa face with regards to these issues?
So the fence line communities are the informal sector as well, because they are day-to-day living. Their livelihood is to recycle waste or to conduct recycling of recyclable materials. But the reality is that waste is force-fed to Africa. Multinational corporations produce materials that are not designed to be recycled in places like Africa, where we don't have the necessary systems to be able to recycle those products. So we don't have a say in the matter. This is something that is brought down from companies in the global north. It's a form of waste colonialism. We are left with just the impacts of it and are forced to accept that this is what we need to develop as Africa. This is this high mass consumption lifestyle of convenience that we need to adopt. We need solutions for Africa to be coming from Africa. And we believe that zero waste systems are the best practices for us to achieve this by managing waste effectively separately, effective organic waste management, integration of waste pickers, and fundamentally phasing out all non-recyclable single-use plastics.
Thank you so much for that. Christine, what are some of the ways, perhaps in these halls and exhibition pavilions right now, that the plastics and petrochemical industry hold back climate action and progress on these issues?
So we're, when we talk about this industry, we're talking about ExxonMobil. They're the top plastics producer in the world. So it's the same fossil fuel and fossil fuel processing companies that are holding back climate action on so many fronts. And what they're trying to do here is, when they're producing plastic, it's sort of like a Hail Mary pass. They're trying to say there are ways for them to keep extracting oil and gas that are not polluting to the climate. But the greenhouse gases that they create in the extraction and production process are hugely significant. One data point that's really interesting is that if plastics life cycle were a country, it would be the 5th largest emitter of greenhouse gases in the world. We're here with a delegation of people from over 12 countries, and they are leaders in their cities and in their countries, and they're taking local action and also global and national policy action. Because there's enormous power that comes from local and global strategies that are joined together for climate action, and we're using that power to fight back.
Well, that is spectacular. Thank you so very much. Let me ask you, Niven, one last question. If you could say anything to the petrochemical and plastics executives roaming through these halls right now, what would it be?
It would be that it's time for change. We cannot continue to rely on fossil fuels. We need to start moving towards alternative systems. And we need to recognize that the petrochemical industry is using plastic production as the outlet to continue flowing through the economy. And we need to recognize that that has to change. The system that we currently have is not enough, and we need to change that entire system.
Thank you so very much. So we've heard a lot about the issues. We heard Reverend Yearwood talk about the importance of culture. Now I want to turn to Mr. A.Y. Young. A.Y. is a producer, singer-songwriter, entertainer, and entrepreneur. He's a UN youth leader for the Sustainable Development Goals, and his upcoming album, Project 17, is dropping soon. He first began writing poetry at 14, a reaction to the great disparity in Kansas City known as the Truce Divide, which is something perhaps that he can tell us about. So AY is not only going to tell us a little bit about his work, but we're going to see a video, and if we're lucky, we will also get a bit of a performance. That's what I meant.
Cue the video.
Cue the video.
Wonderful.
Is what I meant. Thank you. Sorry for that.
Yeah, the video can kind of just intro who I am.
Yes. So AY, tell us about your work with the United Nations and the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah. I mean, I started out following my passion, learned that I could, store energy in batteries. Energy is the base resource, and I really use music as a vehicle to help people get access energy. So I use my concerts, a music for impact model. Every battery to a concert raises money to get one person, one village access energy, because music is a universal language that can bring us all together and can be used to power change.
So tell us about the Sustainable Development Goals that relate to plastics and petrochemicals. I think there are probably a handful of them that apply.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, the goal 2, goal 12, probably goal 13. All the goals I think are connected, and like when I met the Secretary General, and he made me one of these 17 young leaders because I was achieving goal 7. I actually didn't know what the goals were. Like it was funny because I was telling him in a conversation, like, more people know like Johnny Depp's relationship, at least in America, than the goals. So, I think it's my mission and my journey with this Project 17 to bring together every facet of humanity using music to kind of educate people on the goals. And that's why I've made one song for each goal.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and play just about 1 minute of the video.
A local hip-hop artist makes an international name for himself. He is the first artist to power his concert with 100% renewable energy.
It is a real honor to recognize Mr. A.Y. Young, the founder of Battery Tour.
It's incredible. Can't wait for you to see this. The United Nations is now throwing its support behind him.
Mr. Young has made a big impact in his young life, born in 1991. He's a singer-songwriter, a dancer, producer, entrepreneur, and sustainability advocate. He's staged and performed more than 800 concerts. He was named by the United Nations recently as one of 17 youth world leaders of the world, the only individual selected for that honor from the United States.
To stimulating this local economy further, bringing entrepreneurs together, bringing businesses together, bringing the world together so we can make some change. We're all these outlets for change.
So thank you so much. Thank you so much, AY. Thank you, Rev. Thank you, Niven. Thank you, Christine. And thank you all for joining us for Facing Future TV, live from the COP at Sharm el Sheikh.